I don't know if she does, and I'm not going to say it.
Hello. We're ready to start.
My car key.
Thank you all for coming to my panel. Wow, there's so many people in here. I will give a quick introduction of myself and what we're going to cover. And I'm going to save a chunk of time at the end for questions, but if I go too fast or say something weird and you have a question while I'm talking, just raise your hand. Like, this is for you all.
I know it's so early, but
Yeah.
is there any way to turn it up a little bit? It's a little quiet for my end.
Testing, is that better?
Okay.
All right. I can get louder too.
Yeah, I'll like that and try and find it. Take notes.
No Mike Tysees, thank you. So my name's Erin Chenard.
Good luck. Sorry.
I'm a singer and someone's gesturing for you, person at the door. They want you to sit with them.
There's one right there.
I also don't mind if anybody wants to get up close and sit up there. If you don't want to stand, that's fine. My name's Erin Chenard. I'm a singer and a voice teacher. I live in Bath. I went to USM, right locally. I went to Westminster Choir College in New Jersey for grad school, and I've taught voice for about 11 years now. I'm teaching currently at the University of Maine, Augusta. My first foray into Zoom voice lessons, because I have 2 voice students this semester, because I also work full-time, and they are in different time zones from each other and from me. So Zoom is awful, but it's also really cool, because I can teach people. So, Your Voice 101, come on in, you can have a seat right there if you
No,
want.
I'm just saying if maybe we should like close the door to the room.
That's fine.
Okay, it's a little cool.
Okay. It's a little cool or loud. I'm not even being loud. Okay. Also, does anybody get the joke? You know? Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm going to suck all your voices into the shell at the end. Your Voice 101. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Where I'm going to do a basic kind of physical overview of vocal anatomy, because for me as a teacher, if I don't necessarily have a tool in my pocket for a certain problem with a singer, or for my own self, because I'm always teaching my own self how to improve, I always find that the most helpful knowledge is the shape and function of your voice itself, and it's kind of mysterious because it's very interior and tiny. So the more you know. So to start that off, basic vocal anatomy. All right, does anybody want to be my lovely assistant? I will give you a prize. I saw your hand first. Thank you. Mustache mask. All right, so I have I'm going to make up a number, 500 times scale larynx over here. And we're going to assemble it. And if you want to have a seat, thank you. All right, and I will, all right. So starting with cartilage. Okay, so what's the name of your voice box? Did I already say it? Organ?
Larynx.
Larynx, good, okay. So your larynx sits on top of your trachea. This is a cartilaginous tracheal ring. And actually, if you pretend the duct tape, highly technical stuff I made it with. These are pool noodles, by the way. It doesn't actually meet in the back. It's kind of like a dryer tube, you know those big tubes with the wire in it that comes out of your dryer, but it doesn't meet in the back. It's just all connected with membrane, and there's many, many rings, but the one at the top is where your larynx starts, so that's going to fall. Everything's going to fall off this because I did not create a way to stick it there. What's your name, by the way? Rachel. Thank you for helping. So on top of your trachea is the first cartilage of your larynx. This is the cricoid. It's shaped like a signet ring, you know, like a class ring with fat on the top. And the skinny part goes in the front. I put duct tape so I remember. Okay. All right. This is where it's going to get tricky. I'm going to get You're going to have a job, I promise. All right. So this is kind of like where all of the connectors for everything connect. and I have muscles and vocal folds that are gonna go in there. So this is a twofer. This big orange one here, kind of shaped like a shield. This is what most people probably associate with their voice box. So if you can actually you want to hold that for me? Thank you. You can kind of palpate it in the front of your neck. It's what your Adam's apple is really sticking out there. That's going to be, oh, it's upside down, I'm sorry.
There we go. You're gonna start speaking Australian.
Oh no, I gotta hang upside down. Okay. Just want to make sure I've got everybody facing the right way. Yes. So, thyroid cartilage. It's related to your thyroid itself, but it's not. It's just in the same general area. So, when you feel the front of your neck and the front of your Adam's apple, you feel this little notch here. And then, this is your epiglottis. So, we're going to attach the thyroid real quick.
And we stick this in this side. All right. And we're gonna turn it around. Oh, they do. They go straight through. Thank you. I had a thing for that. All right. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So this is.
We made a larynx. So it points a little bit in the front, and it can move. It's articulated by these little joints. And now we're going to turn it around because all the action's in the back. Thank you. You're so good. All right, let's just sit it right there. Okay. And if you just want to hold it here, I think it'll stay in. Okay. So these are your vocal folds. I'm going to yank them out. All right, so your vocal folds, the pink ones, they're in the middle. They're a little more tense than this usually. These are tension bands, for exercising, but it's fine. So, we call them vocal folds or vocal cords. Most people call them vocal cords, and as a kid I always thought of like guitar strings, like spelled it like chord with a CH. So vocal folds is more accurate. Thank you. They are two little strips of membrane covering ligament. So, and they go together. They meet in the middle. They meet in the middle, just like that. And so when you send air through them and there's some resistance, you can create resistance in it's called the glottis, the opening between your vocal folds. If you go, huh, and you feel your throat kind of close up, you're pressing your vocal folds together. So you need some of that in order to phonate, in order to make sound. You don't need too much because then you get too much pressure. And we've all heard those singers where you're listening to them and you're like, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, that's too high for you. Oh. So that's like a pressure resonance thing. So these vocal folds can get longer and shorter. These are attached to them in real life. Right now they're just flapping. This is a thyroarytenoid muscle, and this is another one. And those are responsible for making the vocal folds shorter and thicker, which we can demonstrate in a really sloppy way with the arytenoid cartilages. Okay. This is the hard one. So these go in here. You didn't know we'd be cooking an organ in here today.
This is incredible.
I feel like we're in science class.
Do you have an engineer degree? Because hot glue and pool noodles. All right. Okay, there we go. I think I busted it a little this time. Oh no, that's one of them. All right. These are the arytenoid cartilages. Yay! Okay.
I'm not going to put their stoppers on because I don't want to waste your time playing with pool noodles. But so these actually all attach these muscles too. You want to, if you, yeah, there's another slot there for that little green one. If you want to shove it there, thank you. Anyway, so these are the muscles that when they pull, I wanted to get it to work.
Oh, we busted through, so there's just the one hole inside. Okay.
So if we pull on the green muscles,
Have two holes over here.
that's fine. That's supposed to be, yeah. So we pull on these, they get shorter and fatter, because it's like we pulled them here. And then to lengthen them, we have cricothyroid.
So these go in here. They go on the inside. There's like this really tricky slot. All right, there's one.
We'll just do one turn on the side. Thank you. Okay. So when this muscle pulls, it pulls the front of the, I want to call it a thorax. It's a thyroid cartilage. Someone remind me when I start calling it a thorax. It's like from Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm going to rip out my thorax. Okay.
Thorax is part of the body.
It's like your whole torso, isn't it? Yeah. It's not your thorax cartilage. All right. So thyroid cartilage gets pulled forward, and that lengthens the vocal folds and thins them out. So they change in 2 dimensions. They get longer and skinnier, and they get shorter and fatter. And when they're shorter and fatter, their edges kind of square up, so there's more surface area touching together when they vibrate versus when they're stretched out and you have a very thin edge. So which one, if you were going to intuit, would be used more for higher pitches? The long skinny with the thin edges, or the shorter with the wider edges? Long skinny, yeah. Right, so CT, cricothyroid, high pitches. TA, thyroarytenoid, lower pitches. And they're always working in concert together. You're never just going to have one set of muscles just like hanging out. So they're always handing off the job of going higher and lower because they help you change pitch as well. So I think, oh, I can't believe I forgot the hyoid bone. This is my favorite part. Okay. I'm such a nerd, I'm sorry. Okay, so here, this goes on like this through the end of the pool. If you want to stick it on that.
How long did this take you?
Hours. As long as my graduate degree. Alright, this should have been like my voice science final, like, you're at recreation. I also haven't addressed this big flappy blue thing, but I will. Okay, so let's turn it back around. Thank you, Rachel. As my arytenoids are falling out. Ah. I was walking here from the repair station where I was reapplying hot glue. And I'm walking away from the tent, and this starts flapping away, and I'm like, I'm gonna lose my epiglottis. And this very nice person who's doing security jumped up and saved my epiglottis. I'm like, that I've never said that sentence before. So this is the hyoid bone, and it is such a cool bone because it's teeny tiny. It's only about 2.5 centimeters wide. So maybe look at around the size of your thumb if you were going to go around it. Yeah, like its horns are about that, like on average. And it's different, you know, for different body sizes. And it sits at the top. It's what the thyroid, not thorax, attaches to. And then on top of the hyoid bone is the root of your tongue. So your tongue plays a huge role in speaking and singing, as we know, not just as an articulator, but also like it's just attached to the whole thing. So if you have tongue root tension, it can like raise or lower your larynx as well. And it is not articulated to any other bone in the body. It's the only bone that's like that. Cool. It's just sandwiched in its little nest of gooey stuff. All right, it's just floating. It's a floating bone. And you can raise it and lower it actually. If you put your finger on your Adam's apple and you swallow, You feel it go, boop. It grosses some people out, I'm sorry. Can't help it. Yeah, so hyoid bone, and I did a different cosplay yesterday. I was Harrow from the Locked Tomb trilogy, so I made a bracelet out of 2 giant hyoid bones. So if anybody wants to check out like my interpretation of an anatomically correct hyoid bone, here you go. But you know, in reality, picture them like this big. So there's a bone bracelet for you. Okay.
They would be more of a pinky ring than a bracelet.
Yes. Otherwise, if you made one big enough for your wrist, you'd be, I don't know, ultra creepy. Okay. So many hyoid bones. All right. So I think I'm all set with larynx. Thank you so much for your help. Oh, let me give you a prize. You get one of the big larynx stickers. Yay! Thank you. All right. So I'm gonna set. I should name her, right? Like I'm gonna set Bessie over here. Oh, trachea!
Ursula too.
Ursula too. Ariel.
That does look familiar.
It looks just like her. Wow. Okay.
And she doesn't make a sound.
One. That's right. Oh, this is getting more and more vile. Okay. So this blue thing. This is what. Okay. I shouldn't have sent you away, but it's fine. One more thing about the larynx before I put the big foam monstrosity down. Oh God, it's a mess back here. All right, so this is called your epiglottis. It's shaped a little bit like a leaf. And if you want to get a better look at it on your way out, it's pretty gory looking. It's the pink thing I've highlighted right there. When you swallow, this goes down over the whole shebang. So nothing ever touches your vocal folds except for your own happy mucus and like lubricants from your body. So when people say, drink water, you should absolutely drink water to take good care of your voice, but you should drink water the day before you need to be singing or performing or acting or whatever, because it's got to go into your body and turn into mucus and all of the good things that it needs to do to lubricate these teeny tiny little vocal folds. And you will feel something touch your vocal folds if you swallow wrong and you go, so that's coughing. Question.
When a voice changes due to puberty or transition or whatever, like what changes in that?
Ooh, good question. Yes, so the question was, if everybody couldn't hear it, was when a voice changes either due to puberty or transition, what happens in here? And the answer is a lot. So if you look, I'll get into more detail. If you look at about the top notch of your thumb, that's about the size of your larynx relative to your body. Like, it's small. So if you're a larger body, which happens during puberty for most cis males, everything grows, including the body, and the larynx grows a lot. So that makes the vocal folds longer. And so just like a long piano wire in a grand piano, the big ones, boom, you get lower notes. They are also thicker because they're just overall more mass. So to have a higher range, just generally for a voice, is generally a smaller vocal fold. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I haven't, yeah.
Thank you.
You can, that is cool. No, go back. Okay, so we did basic vocal anatomy. What time we got? Holy cow. Okay. So also another size thing. The surface of your vocal folds is pretty small. If you are a small-bodied person with a high voice, you could probably cover the surface area of your vocal folds with a dime, and that's their length and size. Maybe a quarter if you have a really big, like, deep bass voice. And then, so functionally, the most important thing the larynx and the glottis, that space between your vocal folds, does is it keeps us from drowning when we eat. So it is a valve, first and foremost, to close off your lungs and your breathing apparatus when we swallow. So that's the epiglottis comes into play. And you all know if something goes down the wrong tube, your epiglottis is very important. So that's its main thing, and it's just secondary function that we can speak and sing and make all these cool sounds with it. So we covered how the lengthening and shortening of the vocal folds changes pitch. And so in addition to just the sound of the vocal folds, so if you just had a pair of vocal folds sitting out there in space and you were able to blow air through them, they would sound like that's it, it's awful. And it's adding it into your uniquely shaped vocal tract that gives it timbre, that gives it sound and uniqueness. And we also, as singers and speakers, and hey Jay, we're incredibly lucky in that we can change the shape of our instrument more than anybody. Like trombonists, we get longer and shorter, that's it. But vocalists, we can change the length of the vocal tract by raising and lowering the larynx, which also makes a big difference as far as like overall tone, like how your tone is heard. For speaking as well, we can change the shape. We can change like the firmness. So like the inside of your throat and everything, it's called a pharynx, just means empty space. Fancy science word for empty space. You can, if you like have stiffen the muscles, it creates a firmer surface, which will change the sound of your voice versus like relaxed and flexible. So there's a lot of different ways that our instrument can change shape and also articulate. So like your tongue, your enunciation, the whole thing. Voice actors, how do you sound like 5 different people? Changing the shape, raising and lowering the larynx. And action and speed of the folds. So if you are singing, if you're singing like an A, which would be like, anybody have perfect pitch? Anybody have perfect pitch?
A. No, that's a C, I'm sorry.
Oh, if that's a C, good. Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. So if you're singing an A, that's about 440 vibrations per second, per cycle in the sound. If you're singing a high C, it's something like 1140 cycles per second. That's how many times the vocal folds are hitting each other per second. So it's crazy. So that leads me to the first part of vocal hygiene, which is hydrate. So those tiny little folds are covered with this like very flexible, very moist stuff called stratified squamous epithelial cells. Which, if anybody can recite that to me at the end, you will get 2 larynx stickers. And so they kind of like wiggle and form a wave as the folds are banging together, hitting together, making contact. And so there's so much movement and it's so fast, and just like in a car engine, if you have old gunky oil, the heat is going to increase and they're going to get stickier and it's going to take more muscle and you're just going to tire out faster. So thing 1 is hydration, thing 2 is hydration, and thing 3 is hydration.
Hydrate or dihydrate.
Yeah, hydrate or dihydrate, that's pretty good. Yeah, I like that. And like as I was saying before, if you're gonna hydrate, do it the day before. If you're like, okay, here's my big performance, it's in an hour, I should start drinking water. It's like,
Too late.
it's not too late, it's never a bad idea to drink water. I mean, you're gonna have to pee in the middle of your performance, but you should have done it the day before. Just think 8 hours before.
No, it can't be. Because we went after.
So what hydration is, water, yes. Herbal teas, things without caffeine. Unfortunately, black tea is not great. I love black teas, this makes me sad. It's got tannins in it.
Yeah, I'll check outside.
It's got sugar, it's probably fine. Yeah, it might make you might make you a little sticky.
And I miss things.
So what it isn't is drinking coffee or tea. And when you're sick, even if you're hydrated, you're going to have inflammation, which is going to do the same thing. It's going to create more dryness and more friction And it's just, you just have to go easy on it. Like, there's no magic pill unless you're like a professional opera singer and you're having like strep throat or something and they go and shoot you full of cortisone. Like you can get through it, like, but there's no, that's the magic pill, and there's, you can't do that more than a few times and have a good result. So when you're sick, drink extra water, just go easy on it, sing with good technique, which I'm not telling you about technique so much as just fundamentals. And also know that when you're speaking and singing, there are nerves attached to this whole thing, obviously, because our body has to tell it what to do. However, there's no, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Biofeedback, but there's no actual, like, sensation in your vocal folds. So when they're tired, they don't tell you. When they're overtired, you're like, oh, I kind of feels a little bit fuzzy there. It's like you're way past the point of tired. At that point, the biofeedback is really delayed with your vocal folds because there's just not much information flowing from those little guys. So by the time you're feeling tired, stop singing or talking or shouting or whatever you need to do, because it's already a little bit too late. Hi, do you want to come sit? Or sit? These are my children. Hi, you can sit in those chairs. You have a tortoise. All right, biofeedback. When you're sick, vocal rest is important. You know, if you get to that point of tiredness, you're gonna be fine. Don't freak out, you don't have nodes. It's not the end of your vocal life. It'll go away. Go to sleep, wake up, go easy on it. You also got something cool from round one. That plays into a lot of the fears that like singers have, that I used to have, still do. Everybody has that little bit of neuroticism in there, like, oh God, I've ruined it. You really haven't. It's very tough. I mean, we talk for hours every day and we don't even think about it, how much we ask of this little tiny guy. So it's tough. And it's pretty hard to like damage for the long term. So if you feel something short term going on, just give it a rest. It'll be okay. It'll be fine in the morning. The swelling will go down. And anxiety can have the same effect. So either performance anxiety in the short term of like, I'm on stage right now and I have a lot of adrenaline and my body is shaking. That can kind of dry you out a little bit and it'll affect your breathing mechanism, because what happens when you get feeling that way, the breath goes way up here and everything tightens up. Which for speaking and singing, breathing down, taking your center of breath a little lower away from all of these muscles that are already trying to do their job is better. So that's just part of nature trying to save you from the tiger. What are you giving me the lid? You're just being cute. Can you put it down? Thank you. Speaking of anxiety. And in grad school, personally, I had a lot of anxiety around practicing and voice technique and why aren't I getting better and oh my gosh, what's happening with my low range and all of this. So like long-term anxiety can also play a factor too, because you're just more tense. It really is. It just comes down to that high sweet pea. So relax. Just relax. The cool thing about your voice is that there's no other instrument like it. If you ever hear like a vocal doppelganger or be like, whoa, I thought I'd heard so-and-so, it happens so rarely because everybody sounds so unique. It just doesn't happen often. So whatever you have going on vocally, you know, we compare ourselves a lot with each other as far as why can't I sing that high, or why don't I have a tone that sweet, or, you know, whatever, too high, too low. I did practice Ursula's song for today just because I wanted to feel legit. I'm not going to sing it because I realized I was like, maybe when I'm 65 I can deliver this song. I'm a soprano right now in my life, always have been, and I'm like, men, they don't like a lot of blah blah. I can phonate down there, but it's not where I live. So your voice is going to have a natural like resting place. So just respecting that and accepting it, you can play with it all sorts of different ways as far as tone and sound, but you know, there are some limits, and don't feel like you're less than of a performer or a singer or whatever because your voice doesn't do what someone else's does. Yes, Pikachu.
Hi there.
Hi.
I was kind of curious. You said we all have like a natural voice range. If you try to go to a voice range that your body isn't typically used to, will it damage it more? Or
If you hang out there and you push on it, yes. So that is one way to damage your voice, is to try to sing too high or too long if you don't have good technique and your voice is just out of your range. But to do it a little bit in practice, to visit it and then come back to it, it might be uncomfortable, but if you do it over and over, that's building technique and it's building muscle, and that's not gonna hurt you. It's just following the rule of, I feel tired now, I should stop, and respecting that.
you can build muscle in your throat?
Absolutely, these are muscles, and they work together. They're tiny little muscles, but like I was, this is my other one. Anybody know the cosplay? Show them your leg, show them the thing. Go out there, go in front. Go in front. Oh, yeah, heard it.
Totoro.
I thought she was dressed like Squid Game for a second.
I thought she was
It's
just
Satsuki, but from the end credits of Totoro. Yeah. But this is great. Okay. How are we doing on time? Oh, we got plenty of time. Okay. That's a larynx. Yes. Did I see another question somewhere over here?
I wanted
Yes.
to ask if you can build your range, but you sort of already answered
You
that.
you can absolutely build your range within its natural limits, but you can definitely build on it. I was gonna say before I got distracted by my chaos monsters here, that I always sang like head voice dominant, kind of like legit style, studied opera and all that stuff. Thank you. And as a result, that's my body's like, oh, these are the muscles we use. So I default to that. And some people are like, they just kind of naturally fall into like the belter range and they can do like pop song and stuff like that. And that's what their body just wants to do. And you can definitely do crossover and you can definitely learn the different styles and you can definitely train the muscles. But if you think about it, if you do something one way your whole life, just like if you study ballet, kind of changes your body like for permanent. So early on in life, I think it's really good to study a variety of styles, because who's going to end up going to the Met and specializing in this one thing? Someone, you know. But for the rest of us, it's kind of nice to have a range of things that we can do and just enjoy and play around. So I have been teaching myself more musical theater style and belting and just enjoying the heck out of it, even though it's like I can do this much, but yes.
Sorry. You mentioned that, like you said, when I'm 60, maybe I can sing Ursula song.
Yes.
So age is gonna change the.
It will somewhat. Like my voice teacher in what are you doing with my tentacle? Thank you. My voice teacher in college in college and grad school, they were in their 60s, still singing and still singing soprano, but you get more depth and you get lower as you age. Like my voice now, if I think of myself speaking back in high school, it's probably more like this, and now I can at least fake a mature voice. So, I don't know, maybe when I'm 60 I still won't be able to do Ursula, but I can dream right.
I just changed the key.
Just change the key.
There you go.
So intimidating. All right, is there anything else that I wanted to cover? Oh, hydration, biofeedback we covered when you were 6. See, I was supposed to be being like helpful. Here's the next thing we're talking about. Vocal rest, we even covered that. Okay, technique versus practice. So this kind of comes into the questions of, can you build, baby? Can you build muscle? Yes, you can. So technique and practice are both important for building a voice. I'm sorry, I'm so distracted right now. What are you doing with all the stickers? Just don't bend them, okay? I'm gonna make you grab them. So technique and practice, it's important to delineate that when you're practicing. So there's warming up, which is just basically exercising. there's technique, which is how am I doing what I'm doing. Like I feel when you're working on technique, you're really thinking about every move you're making, which you can't do in the real world. So that's important technical work to do, but it's tiring. And until you find like the way to do what you want without tension and pain, you're gonna wanna go slowly. So practicing, if you're singers, how many singers are in here? Mostly, yeah, nice, awesome. So practicing is important, but dividing it up into this is just me singing and exercising the muscles versus this is me working on technique and trying to go places maybe I haven't gone in comfortable ways or stretching what I can do and making sure that you keep those separate so you can do both. Okay.
Kids younger than me. And yet, I do the same thing.
Sorry. Okay. Technique versus practice, yes. Okay. Questions about practicing or singing or yes.
So, let's see. If I were just the average person and I just spoke as much as everyone else, and I wanted to increase my range as much as possible,
Yeah.
if I would practice that, how often could I do that, and how long should those sessions be?
So the question is about increasing your range, like your speaking voice range, right?
Singing.
No? Or singing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd say, like, you can do it every day. Like, I'm a voice teacher, so if I had a student who practiced every day for 20 minutes or even 15 minutes, I mean, you got it made if you're just consistent, because you can't really teach your body to do something once or twice a month. You know, like once a week. You can make progress, but it's not going to be fast. Yeah. Yes.
Do you have any specific things you do to practice?
It depends what I'm working on. So if I'm warming up for, say, like a Sarah Bareilles song, I'm going to be singing in that poppy style when I'm doing my warm-ups. If I'm warming up to sing opera, I'm going to be singing in that style. So the important thing, I think, a very useful thing for practicing and warming up is using a variety of vowels. You don't have to come up with some like miraculous, here's the vocal exercise that will get you where you want to go. If you can do everything on all of the different vowels, it means you don't have a lot of tension. It means that you have freedom of expression, and that's a huge thing. So just like, I want to sing this note and I want to sing it comfortably. Can I do it on all the vowels? Cool, that's great. And that takes some doing. Like, it sounds so simple, but that will take some doing. Unless you're at the top of the staff and above, so treble voices, literally you will run out of vowels after a certain point. So when you get to the top of the staff, like I'm talking like F5 and higher up to C, like high C, up at high C, acoustically the only vowel that exists is ah. So you can have a word that says you're supposed to be singing an E vowel, but you're not going to sing an E vowel. It's just not there because the vowels have pitch. So as long as you keep that in mind when I say the sing everything on all the different vowels, if you're up really high, you have to modify them and open them and eventually end up on ah. Yes, in the back.
Will you sing a little something for us today?
Oh, will I sing a little something? Oh my God. That's a tough question. Maybe at the end. Am I out of time, Colin?
Nope.
Thanks. All right, maybe at the end, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
I actually had a question about specifically, so a lot of the tips that you've given have been fantastic for singing. As someone who is trans and wants to work on their voice a little bit, would there be any differences in practicing range for speaking versus range for singing?
Yes and no. They're all very related. So I've read, not extensively, but I've read on transitioning voices. And the exercises, they're all the same principles. It's just a narrower range, but it basically boils down to where, so right now, what note am I speaking on? Like associating a pitch with where you are speaking, and then trying to raise that gently and over time. So like if you're speaking on like a I don't know what this is. Like, this is low for me. I think it's lower than an A. I think it's like an F maybe down there. There's certain ranges that are associated with genders. So, and then there's an overlap where it's like somewhere in the middle is non-binary sound, and we don't really associate it with one or the other. And so you're basically training your voice to kind of land in one of those ranges. And if you have a larger set of vocal folds, it's going to take time to raise it maybe by a half step and another half step and another half step, but that's all you need. It's really just a matter of like a couple of notes, which feels huge because when we speak, it's just coming out. But yeah, it's basically the same thing as far as notes go, but then practicing sounds versus words and then lengthening to phrases. So instead of like a song where you have to learn the rhythms and then the notes, and then we're gonna like express it and add stuff to it. Like it's the same thing but on the smaller scale.
For sure.
Yes.
When it comes to learning pitch and learning notes, I didn't grow up playing anything regularly, so I'm all over the place. But I started using some of those apps that tune you.
Mm-hmm.
Some are really good, some are really bad. Anybody?
The apps are a little sketchy. Yeah, I mean it's like trying to sing with a tuner in front of you. Like you just, that's not a really good way to do ear training as far as like you want to increase the accuracy of your intonation as you're singing. Like so you're staying on pitch. Is that like the question?
Well, I mean I can't. The notes that I'm hearing outside aren't exactly the notes coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, yeah. So right.
Learning in the sound, the voice that comes out isn't always the same, even though the muscles feel like they're the same.
Right.
So I was just wondering.
So
about
one thing that might help a little bit, very low tech, is plugging one ear, because that gives you more insight as to like the difference of the sound that's in your body versus out of your body, and it can help kind of regulate the two.
I usually do a cup thing.
That could help too.
Is that the same thing?
It's kind of the same principle, so that you can hear yourself better. There is also something called like hearphones, which I've seen marketed in singer magazines, which can help you like associate what you're hearing on the outside with what you're hearing on the inside.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah.
My teacher had some of those.
You talked about the, I think the FTM direction of transitioning, but what about,
Yes.
sorry, I meant to
No.
say MTF.
No, it's flattering.
What
Thank you.
about, what about the other direction?
So if you're transitioning female to male, there's usually going to be hormones involved,
Yeah.
and that will create that second puberty, and it will grow the voice box and lengthen the vocal folds, and that will be a lot of help in itself. But otherwise, it's the same thing of getting used to where you want your fundamental speaking pitch to be.
Just generally trying to create a more masculine intonation, if that's the word. A more
Yeah.
masculine tone in general.
Yeah, a more masculine tone is going to end up more in chest voice, more of a physically lower sensation in your body resonance.
Yeah, one of the things isn't just like what tone it is, but actually where the voice is coming from. Like I can be using the same tone, but I can be having it coming from my mouth, or I can be having it coming from my chest, and that sounds different in and of itself.
Right, you can sing the same pitch with different resonance. And you can also sing the same pitch with a different size vocal tract, and that will make a very big difference as to how it sounds to somebody on the outside. So I'm gonna see if I can do this. It's a weird vocal trick, and I haven't practiced it to do it in front of people. So if I'm gonna be on a pitch, we'll pick this one. And if I'm gonna sing this pitch with a very low larynx, this is what it sounds like. And if I stay on the same pitch and I raise my larynx, this is what it sounds like. It's the same note, but whoa, it sounds really different by changing the length of your vocal tract. So that can also be useful to people in transition to get those laryngeal, I didn't cover that in the anatomy, I'm sorry. There's also these extrinsic muscles on the outside of the larynx that raise it and lower it. Noodles. I need more noodles or more stretchy bands. Yes, question.
So just to kind of jump on that bandwagon of changing voices,
Yeah.
If you're a performer and you've been out of the circulation for a little bit, so you're not using it as much, or you're getting older, and you want to go back to working those muscles, like giving it a muscle workout to get it back, and focus on that technique, what resources are available that if we don't have a voice instructor, that we might be able to look for?
I would say get a voice instructor. Even if you just get 5 lessons or something to assess where you're at vocally and what direction you're going in. Because I love YouTube and it's full of so much information. But a lot of it I look at and I go, this is useful if you know what you're talking about, or if this is useful for you personally.
And to continue that, if we are looking into voice instructors, because I know there's ads and things, what are the key things that we should look for a reputable person?
Ooh, good question. Oh. There's no like easy answer for that. If they're an active performer and you can go and hear them, that's cool. To kind of get a context of like, this is what this person can do, and this is what I'm looking to do. Because people have different toolboxes, you know, for different techniques and styles. If you're looking at someone and they have, you know, studied vocal ped, like my master's was a double in performance and pedagogy. Pedagogy really drills you down into all of this fundamentals of how everything is set up. So that person would know what they're talking about and anatomically not damage you. Yes. Question.
Kind of on the same thing, are there red flags that you should look for in a vocal instructor?
I would. I mean, that's the same thing. Like I watch people on YouTube and I'm like, do you really know what you're talking about? Or this just works for you? You know, that kind of thing. If someone can only produce a singer of a certain type, I would call that a red flag. If someone can work with a variety of people with a variety of instruments and everybody comes out with solid, like, knowledge and like consistent technique. I mean, you can't instill good technique in everybody because all students are different too. But I mean, that's huge. Just being able to work with someone who doesn't have your exact instrument, you know, because the more you learn about the voice, the more you can help someone else learn about it from different perspectives. And you had a question in the front.
Yeah, so I have a question about speaking trainings. So if you wanted to do something like read out loud to people more often, how could you train for that?
I would read aloud to yourself in your bedroom mirror, do so in lengthening chunks. So if you can do it for 5 minutes with no discomfort and you're getting a good loud sound, thanks, then you're on the right track. And try to lengthen that more and more. And when I was talking about the amount of pressure needed on the vocal folds, if you're trying to project, you can project by increasing pressure, you know, making a pressed sound, which works to a point, and then you start to feel fatigue. You can also project using resonance, so you're still using pressure. Yes, it's still a muscle action, but you're making use of like the ringiness of your vocal tract, which you get more bang for your buck. You can last longer, basically. So experimenting with where you feel vibrations, like up in the mask here, like that's belt area, so you can get a lot of sound for less like taxing on your body. Yes.
So something I'm curious about is like controlling the timbre of your voice and doing like different timbres, because I love to try and do like different, to make my voice sound differently all the lot.
Yeah, play around.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do some, I've, like with that whole larynx raising thing, I like cramped myself out trying to do like Anime Girl, like how high can I go with my squeak? It's like, you're really not gonna hurt yourself if you're doing something short term. So experimenting with as much sound as you can make, working on like, is my larynx high, is it low? Am I am I going up here with my resonance? Am I going more in my mouth? Like, there's so many different ways you can do it, and you use the sensations of your body so you can remember what you were just doing. You know, where did I feel that? Yes.
Back when I was in chorus, my chorus teacher sometimes mentioned foods you should not eat the day before a concert.
Yes.
Could you recommend, or do you know any
What red flag foods?
Anti-recommend?
Yeah. So it's like, as you say, like the day before, because it's gonna go in your body and cause something to happen. I mean, the day before, I'm not thinking about what I'm eating aside from taking good care of myself and just eating a healthy diet. Like, if you know that tomatoes make you blow up, like, don't eat tomatoes. Some people are really affected by dairy because it thickens up your mucus and makes this gummy. So, I mean, maybe that. I've eaten a piece of chocolate cake and went and sang a song, so, like, the immediate effects don't usually bother you unless you're, like, gluing your mouth together.
I planned to sing for a server through voice chat, and I restricted myself from coffee milk for like 3 days. It was torture, but it was worth it.
Good for you. I'm sure they appreciated your sacrifice. I think that's time. Oh, no, that was a 10 you gave me, right? Okay, so we've got 8 minutes. Any more questions from anybody else?
What is, you mentioned nodes, what are those and how do you avoid getting them?
Oh, nodes?
Nodes.
Yes, that's short. That's short for nodules. So it's basically like a scar on your vocal folds. And they usually, nodes come in pairs. I see everybody's gonna be like, oh, this is gonna be in your head now, so I shouldn't tell you. It takes a lot of work to get nodes. Like yelling a lot in an unsupported way. I mean, there are people who can yell and sing death metal, and that's amazing. That's a skill I don't have. But doing it in a way that's like causing ow is not the best way. So if you do that for an extended period of time, shouting too much, screaming too much, it's basically like a kind of a callus, and they'll be on either vocal fold and they'll be opposite each other. So you'll get something happening in your range that's like la 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 la. Like there'll just be a blank whoop. They're not vibrating together because they're hard right there. So you can get them removed by surgery. There's also vocal therapy ways. Basically just improving your technique and singing with good technique is good for your voice and will help it come back. So there's all kinds of scary things I had to look at in books when I was learning this stuff. I'm like, oh god, there's herpes on your voice. So I don't recommend going and looking up what disease might I have on my vocal folds, because 99% chance you don't have it. So just go by how it feels. And if it's not hurting you, it's not damaging you. Yes.
Are the notes like a visible thing?
Yes. If you could be scoped and have a little camera going on your vocal folds while you're singing, you would see them. Yeah, I know, it's rad. I got to sing my vocal folds once. Like, I was really worried about what was going on with my voice, so I went to an ENT and I was like geeking out about it. Like, they're even and they're white and oh boy, they're fine. Like, I didn't need him to diagnose me. I'm like, I'm good, I saw him, it's fine, I'll just relax. Like, yes.
If somebody was to pursue a career in like voice acting, how would they go about that?
I don't know. I'm not a voice actor. I can't steer you in that way.
Okay.
I mean, I would start, like if I was gonna, I would start by imitating different voices that I thought might be in my wheelhouse and seeing if I could produce them consistently and comfortably.
So not Ursula.
No, not Ursula. Your voice. But then, I mean, as far as like where you go to audition or where you send your demo tape, that's a thing. Your reel, is it now? I'm so old. I can't really give you any advice. Yes.
I just wanted to say I'm not really a singer. It's just more of like I'm in the car, I'm gonna sing this song. But there was one day where I lost but it came back. Yeah. So if that happens to any of you, I just want to say don't freak out and think you know.
Don't panic. Yeah.
Because it came back.
Yeah. Well, and most of the time it will come back. That's what vocal rest is for. If you're on vocal rest for like. If you're on vocal rest for like a couple of days and you're not sick and it's not getting better, go get yourself checked out by an ENT because maybe there's something going on. But if it's like a short-term thing, you'll bounce back. Yes.
I can't really produce it right now, but I remember like when I used to try and like practice singing, there was like a point in like my lower range where I would like, you know, I'd like go and then like there'd be like a spot where I wouldn't be able to do it, and I'd like jump up to the next whatever one that my voice could do. Is that a note or is that something else?
No, it's something else. Yeah, I don't think that's a node.
Do you know what that is?
It might have just been a passaggio, like fancy Italian word for like transition point. So resonance in 4 minutes. So vowels have pitch, and you can tune. You have to kind of tune your throat to the shape and size for the note that you're trying to go for. So if I was gonna try to sing like a really high note, but my throat was the shape for a low note, you wouldn't get sound because it's not, the vibrations don't have anywhere to go. Like they have to have like a place to bounce. This is really technical. But yeah, if you find a transition point in your voice, like there's at least 2 for every voice and maybe more when you get farther into technique. But if you get to a point where you kind of hit a ceiling and then pop over and something different's happening, that's just something that you can learn to negotiate with
I
time.
figured it wasn't a note because I don't know if you have you screaming or anything.
Not a node.
Just
No.
inside.
Just inside every day. Did I see another question over here?
Is that what you would kind of call that dead space between like chest voice and head voice?
Some people call it a break or a transition point or a passaggio. Yeah. And those miraculous people who seem to have this like one sound from top to bottom, they don't. They've just really learned how to get both pairs of muscles to hand off the job by practicing. Yeah. Yes.
The glottal stop, is that literally just that thing like smacking?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Glottal stop. So glottal stop is that's very fancy singer word, very good. Is the fancy word for So if you're gonna start a song on an ah vowel and you're gonna go and you hear that little poof at the beginning of like that's not gonna hurt you. It's a glottal stop. It just means that when your air stream hits your folds, they're shut tight so that you kind of hear that pop. If they're just laying there slack and you start the air, you get so that's the aspirate onset. And the balanced one is just and there's no breathiness or glottal stop. It's just coordinated. And it's good to have all of those in your toolbox so that you can use them. One's not better than the other, but they're just all different things that are useful for expression. So, one more slide. We covered anxiety. This is the last slide.
Whoa.
This is a Martha Graham quote, and I love it. Because Martha Graham, I don't know if you all are familiar, she was a choreographer and dancer, modern dancer, when that field was really developing. And she was like the epitome of like tortured artist. So she really suffered for her art. She was never satisfied, and she was talking to a colleague, and the colleague quoted her on this when she was like, is there ever a point when you feel okay? And I've reached it, and here I am, and this is the best I can do. And I'll read it for you because it's tiny. There is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist through any other medium, and it will be lost. The world will not have it. It is not your business, this is important, it is not your business to determine how good it is, nor how it compares with other expressions. It is your business to keep yours clearly and directly, to keep it yours clearly and directly, to keep the channel open. You do not even have to believe in yourself or your work. You have to keep yourself open and aware to the urges that motivate you. Keep the channel open. No artist displeased. There is no satisfaction whatever at any time. That's a little harsh, but you know. There's only a queer divine dissatisfaction, a blessed unrest that keeps us marching and makes us more alive than the others. How cool is that? So good. So thank you for coming to my panel. And please, free to come and check out the hyoid bones and grab a larynx. They're labeled. They got all the parts.